The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good afternoon. Thanks for choosing Manx Radio this Thursday lunchtime. We're on Mannin Line, open line today through till 1 o'clock. So the floor is yours. Whatever you want to talk about, call 66 13 68, text or WhatsApp 166 177, email studio@manxradio.com. Well, the leader of Douglas Council was on yesterday, Devon Watson, who is standing in Douglas Central, along with Chris Thomas and Peter Shimmin. And if there's anything you want to follow up on what was said yesterday regarding Douglas and the future of Douglas and the council's view of where Douglas is going, then by all means do get in touch. A couple of messages that didn't quite make the cut yesterday came in a bit too late to be included, but we're going to let you hear them anyway.
Oh, hello, it's Anne. I live on the Promenade, and this is like a dead duck, I think, but a lot of us would love to have the lights back, the little fairy lights. They're up Douglas Head, they're across the quay, they're up Palace Terrace and Empire Drive, but from the festoon, in the evening, when it's dark, we're like doom and gloom land. Christmas, all the lights finish at the festoon, and we're left with nothing except these horrible industrial-type lights, which look awful. And I was in the post office in Douglas, and there's the most beautiful picture on the back wall of when we used to sail in, and we saw this beautiful bay with all the coloured lights. So they're spending these millions on nonsense, like the darn three legs down near the pier. Can't they afford to have a few nice lights along the promenade, even for the visitors coming along? It's so gloomy. So maybe Devon Watson could answer that. Thank you.
OK, if you want to comment on that, then by all means get in touch. And again... Hi,
it's a question for Mr Watson. Do Douglas councillors have constituency meetings, especially those that have got in unelected? I've lived in Douglas for 8 years and I've not met my councillor or councillors. Do they go to political surgeries, and if not, should they, to get to know what it is that their constituents want and how they can help them? Okay, thank you. It's Andrea, by the way. Thanks, bye.
Thanks, Angie. I know for a fact that there is council representation when there's a Douglas North political surgery at Williston School. As for Douglas East or Douglas South or Douglas Central, I don't know, but if any councillors want to get in touch and tell us when they are in political surgeries, then more than happy to pass that message along. Further with us today, it's David now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. Just talking about the forthcoming Timble sitting, never mind the one where the King's going to come, or the Lord of Man, is the Green Living Grant. And I wish to ask out there to our population, was that consulted in the industry? And that means the electricians, plumbers, the people who were involved in the industry, or was it just an in-circular thing between DEFA and the Manx utilities? Because I believe, and it's only my little reading of it, is that I've got a copy of it now, is to say that there's probably some insider dealing there with the Manx utilities, and I'm going to say it out there is, and if they could prove me wrong, I'll apologise on it there, because one of the things says you've got to deal with Manx utilities. You've got to deal with the government. We don't know what the form's going to be like. There's some things if you it's going to be means tested, and the very issue of it is to help those who may have some green initiatives going, but maybe doesn't have them all. And I know I batter you all the time and saying never mind the current chairman, because they're going to drop off shortly anyway, is let's get the chief executive from Manx Utilities on and find out a little bit about what they're involved in down south with the wind turbines, any involvement off Mackle Way, and then the other issue would be how are they helping people to survive for the future? Because I do believe, and I'm one that does believe now, it's going to be electric. Either whether we like it or not, there's going to be cables running underground or out to sea or wherever, and we're going to be either exporting electricity or buying it in when it's cheaper.
Okay. What do you think the government should do then regarding the Green Living Grant, David?
Examine it a bit more, and I'd love to find out whether any of the people that are in the industry who are brave enough to come out and say they support it, or B, they weren't consulted on it. And that's the biggest thing with our government is how much consultation was done. I know a lot of people in the industries, or the industry, and they say to me they weren't even, when they were consulted on it, but they were promised a draft report, never happened, never came out, and here it is lying on the desk of Tynwald in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, all right.
And that's a sad thing.
I appreciate it. Thanks, David.
Listen, by the way, before somebody asked me the other day, is Andy Wint meeting the King?
Sadly, I don't think he's put in a request for my time at the moment. There's probably an invitation in the post, you know.
Well, I could, because I've still got an old hat, and I think Tynwald Day should be the 5th. Okay. I've got an old top hat. It's a Colonel one. If you want to borrow it, it's yours. All right? You're
very kind. Thank you very much indeed. Good to hear from you. More messages in. Why a ship's horn was blasting out for nearly half an hour at intervals this morning from 6:15, says there's WhatsApper. Well, I was in Douglas at that time, and I believe it was because Douglas was enveloped in fog, and Manxman was hovering around outside the harbour, so presumably that was what it was for. That was why there was a ship's foghorn this morning, because it was foggy. It was very, very thick. At Douglas Central Political Surgery, Ann Corlett was accompanied by Councillor Skinner for the last few years, says this WhatsApper as well. Here's Howard now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. Yeah, yes, that ship's horn this morning, I looked out the window and we can see through to Carnane from where we live, and you couldn't see Carnane. It was, as you rightly say, it was enveloped in fog. Even when I went out at 10:30 here, St. Ninians, and it's still a bit foggy downtown, so that is a requirement of the ship, because the other day the Mannin was the same, and you couldn't see her till she virtually in the harbour.
We couldn't even see the road from Manx Radio this morning.
I can believe it, yeah. But that's the normal... it's not a distress signal, it's a warning signal. But one thing you never hear is that Douglas Harbour foghorn. It used to, Moanin' Minnie we used to call it, when it was at the lighthouse. But anyway, that's not what I come on for. It's something that anybody that's on the internet, anybody that's on the island has an interest in this. I was reading that they're going to close the road down through Quebec for a couple of 3 days since they've done the scans on the new pipework that's gone in for MUA. And they're going to have to close it to rectify faults. And I thought, that was Manx Rock that done all that one. And I looked it up. Who owns Manx Rock? Manx Rock Limited is headquartered at Ballown Quarry in Ballasalla, is owned by local Isle of Man investors. The firm was formed acquiring coal ash. Now, where does that name ring a bell? Douglas Promenade. And it was all sort of the same firm, and all they've done basically is change the name of the company from coal ash to Manx Rock. And now they're getting quite a lot of contracts through the Isle of Man government, the DOI. It's the same horse, it's just a different jockey. And who is presenting all this and the work to get how can I say, employed by the DOI. It sprung up out of nowhere in a very short period of time, and all it's done basically is to change the name Colas to Manx Rock. And they're doing all the work down through to the Sound. They've done a lot of work, and you see them all over the place working for the government.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bode well when you've got to change the name of your company like that to be able to carry on working, because the fiasco on the Promenade must have done a lot of damage to the ability of Colas, and they called themselves at that time, Olden Builders. As I say, they're all different names around these companies. They're all swimming in the same pool, but they're carrying different cards.
Presumably, I mean, if Colas was sold, you see, Colas it's not a Manx company. Colas
it's French.
It's French, yeah. It's been around for years and years. So presumably, when it was sold, they couldn't use the name Colas, so they just used the name Manx Rock. And Colas used to do a lot of work, didn't they?
Yeah, but they're using all the equipment that Colas had.
Yeah.
It's only a handover job.
Yeah, well, they bought the name, and they bought everything that goes with it, presumably.
Yeah,
because
tarmac.
The French wanted out.
Yeah, well, that used to be Shell at one time.
It did, yes, I remember.
Before Colas bought them out. But they're saying in their website that we've been around for 40 years. This is Manx Rock. They haven't 40 months maybe, but that we're experts in asphalt and all the curb work and all sorts of work.
Right.
And their website, they just put it in there for who owns Manx Rock, and as I say, let me just the up and coming roadworks, Manx Rock. There's a myriad of information on here, and the firm handles major servicing and stud insulation projects on behalf of the Department of Infrastructure and operates out of the Ballown Quarry.
Right.
So, where did it fit in and get, how can I say, preference treatment over other companies on the island for roadworks and major structural works within the DOI? So anybody can look it up and just ask on Google who owns Manx Rock and the Isle of Man, and there's a mine of information there for us.
Okay.
And as I say, it's the same horse, it's just a different jockey. And it's one to be wary of, because the fiasco on the Promenade, which is gradually falling to pieces now, let's hope that the rest of the work that have been transferred to this other company is not going to follow the same path.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, we don't quite know who was responsible for what on the prom. Obviously, Colas did work, and there were some subcontractors as well, and some from off the island.
But they were the major contractors.
Yeah, they were. No, quite right, they were. But remember, they were under orders from the DOI.
Yes, but they also received the money that came from the taxpayers, and they should have been responsible for all the works and overseeing the works as the major contractor.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? That's interesting. If Colas have disappeared, and it sounds like these people have basically bought the book, they bought the business, and they bought the whether or not they bought any liabilities, we don't know.
I wouldn't think so. They'd be sidestepped there, and the liabilities would disappear with the purchase of the company, and it's just a change of name, but they're still operating more or less with the same people. They have a new managing director who is I can't remember his name now, Clive somebody, but anyway, that doesn't matter. But he is the new managing director. But you can bet your bottom dollar the word is still coming from the top, because Colas, now Manx Rock, and there's another English company, are all of the same financial structure.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll watch and we'll see.
It'll be interesting to see if any of our potential or standing MHKs can ask a question as to the whereabouts and what's happening to the DOI and their business with Manx Rock.
Okay, Howard, we appreciate you bringing that up. Thanks for being with us.
Take care. Bye now.
Okay, good to hear from you. I can't believe, says John, they're taking the King, Lord of Man, on the halfway horse tram. Are they going to take him to Pulrose Bridge and any other follies we have, like the Summerland site, says John? It's a bit ironic, isn't it? After the King Charles III, Lord of Man, is coming next Tuesday to the Isle of Man and celebrating the anniversary of the trams, and it's only halfway. Who's going to tell him? Or if he says, didn't it used to go further when Mummy went on it? So what do you think what Anne said about the lights on Douglas Promenade? Dingy Douglas, somebody emailed in to say, we got Dingy Douglas, north of the Sefton Hotel. It's like everybody's forgotten about the rest of Douglas, and certainly the lack of fairy lights. Anne did say that we got a string of pearls here on Douglas Head. There are some by the yacht basin in Douglas, and obviously on Empire Drive there are some, but the fairy lights have gone, haven't they? Yes, we talked about those unendingly, didn't we, about those lights. Whether you think Douglas is gloomy, dingy, a message in also saying, I think Douglas is also accommodation anonymous. Some of those empty hotels and those empty boarding houses look absolutely atrocious. Who knows what's going on inside there? If you got any thoughts on this, also if you can shed any light on the Green Living Grant, and also if you're a Douglas councillor who holds a surgery, be more than happy to promote that. The parks are in a worse state than when I started, says Appeal Commissioner. This is Katrina Baptiste. Says she's disappointed about the lack of investment in and the managed decline of Peel's play areas. Residents have been sharing their own concerns on Facebook and taking some action into their own hands, fixing broken equipment themselves. Basically, guerrilla maintenance, they're calling it. Here's the Peel Commissioner, Katrina Baptiste.
It's very different at the Commissioners to the business world, and I know that if it was a business, it would have been done by now. A strategy would have been written and things would have been delivered, but unfortunately that's not the case. So you're right, the discussions started right when I started. I went round and photographed all of the park and took it to the board, and we agreed as a board to invest a head count, so one person to come, and their job role would be to refurbish what we had whilst we created a plan of what new equipment needed to be bought. But then over the winter time we were sort of overruled by two members of the board, and that head count was removed, and I now don't know what the plan is. I know that the parks are in a worse state than they were, so I went round and did another set of photographs, and they're worse than they were when I started. So that's really disappointing, because we're not even really maintaining the equipment that we have, and when it gets broken we're just removing it, but I'm hoping that will change.
Well, there she was, Katrina Baptiste. The three main parks in Peel which are actively managed are Westview, there's Headlands, and also the swimming pool. The others are said to be in managed decline. And Katrina, the noise you heard, she was by the Peel swimming pool park. Well, what do you think about this? And again, the leader of Douglas City Council yesterday was talking about parks. I mean, I don't know what you think about parks. Are parks a luxury? Are they a right? Are they a civic amenity? Is it something that has to be maintained? Some of our parks around the Isle of Man are, it's fair to say, in fairly bad order. And if you want to talk about your local park, by all means do get in touch. But I wonder what you think. And as Katrina said, if it were a business, something would have been done. But then again, in a business, there's normally a sanction for failure. If you don't do something in a business, something happens. But in this situation, if you don't do something, well, what happens? Betty's on now. Hello, Betty.
Hi, Andy. I want to talk about three things.
Yeah.
First of all, they're saying that people shouldn't be told what MHKs, potential MHKs, think about the Ofsted and the wind farms. And And I think that's totally undemocratic.
Well, they're not saying that they can't say. What they're saying is if they do say, if they show an opinion, that really they won't be involved in the decision-making process. Basically, they couldn't be a minister in whenever this goes to Tynwald and whenever the decision-making body has them, because they'll have prejudiced their kind of their neutrality before then.
I don't understand that, really, because I think people need to know what their MHKs think, and they're preventing the potential MHKs for telling people actually what they think on a subject. So I think it's a totally wrong thing to do.
Okay, what was your next thing?
The next thing was this lease that we have on the Liverpool depot for ships.
The landing stage.
The landing stage, yes. Maybe it's costing us an awful lot of money. Maybe we could just sell the lease and concentrate on Haitian and get a fast train into Liverpool for people, because this is just costing us far too much money. When's it going to stop? 100 million? How about 150 million? Where's it going to end?
Well, I'm as much in the dark as you, Betty. Nobody quite... Well, I mean, there will be people inside government, and there's obviously something legal going on in all this. The advocates are going to be arguing about who's responsible for what, who owes what to whom, how much should be paid. In the meantime, the cost goes up, as you say. But Betty, we need the Liverpool landing stage. You have to have it. There is no fast train from Heysham to Liverpool. It doesn't happen. We can't go to Birkenhead because the other ferry company, Stenner's, got that now, so we can't go to Birkenhead. So, like it or lump it, we're lumbered with where we are.
Oh dear, that's terrible. That's really, really terrible. And I just want to say about my previous, what I was saying about the MHKs.
Yeah.
I just think the wind farm in that area, and so tall and so many, I think it's totally wrong. I really do. Okay. And I think a lot of people on the island do. And there's probably more than 9,000 who put in their votes against it. There's probably thousands more. Well, not thousands, but you know what I mean. Lots and lots more who don't want it either.
Okay. All right, Betty.
But they just haven't. And the other thing is, I want to make a shout-out for several people. I want to make a shout-out from Clearview Aerials. He was so helpful to me, and he was really so helpful. And then there's Michael from Richmond Heating. He is the loveliest man, and he was really helpful too. And also I've had dealings with Colburn. They were great. And Spectrum Windows as well. And Manx Deaf Society, Lucy Buxton, they've always been a great help to me.
Okay, so your television's sorted out. That's the important thing.
I hope it is.
Will you be watching the England game on Saturday?
Oh, no, I don't watch football. I don't watch any sports at all. I'm not a bit sporty, I'm afraid.
All right, Betty.
It'd be better for me if I was, I suppose, but I'm not.
All right, thanks for calling today.
Okay, take care, Andy. Bye-bye.
All right. The company behind the plans to build this wind farm in Manx Water says it's unfortunate that the application for the project coincided with the general election. Orsted's Mooir Vannin project is currently being assessed by an independent examining body as part of the 6-month process, which is due to finish at the start of September. So, start of September. Examiners will then make a recommendation to the Cabinet Office and the New Look Council of Ministers, with a decision expected sometime in 2027. The Attorney General's already written to current politicians advising that if they adopt a stance on the project, they may need to declare a conflict and excuse themselves if they're included in any future decision-making process. Get that? If they adopt a stance, they're basically tying their shoelaces together because they can't be in any future decision-making process. Well, Orsted's project director is Jamie Baldwin, and he says he understands the public's frustrations because he knows it's a hot topic.
I think the timing is unfortunate in terms of with the general election and the timing of the application, and we did originally put this application in March 2025, and unfortunately it was delayed. And so with that, I think we always felt there was a risk that this could happen. I understand why government have said that. They want to keep that conflict to minimise the possibility of that. I don't think it directly affects us, but I do understand why people on the island are frustrated by that. So I do recognise that, and it's probably quite difficult for me to comment on the kind of political element to that, but certainly it is important that the examination that we're going through is open, transparent, and is kind of removed from the politics as much as possible. We try and put the facts out there on both sides, and we've been quite clear in our application that there is a significant change, particularly on the visual impact. That is what our own assessment concluded. We've been open about that. We recognise that that's the case. But we also need to be clear about what the potential upsides are and the benefits to the island. And I think that is what the examiners are currently kind of considering. And it's also what ultimately, when after the election, when this recommendation comes from the examiners and when it sits with the Council of Ministers, they need to consider it in the whole, and they need to consider both sides of the coin, I guess.
That's Orsted's Jamie Baldwin talking about the examination into the wind farm project. Let me just give you a little timeline here. 5 weeks today is Thursday the 13th of August. The House of Keys is dissolved. Wednesday 26th of August, candidate nomination period closes, and the general election polling booths open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thursday 24th of September. The 6-month examination finishes to Mooir Vannin finishes on the 9th of September. Now, there's a week of public meetings on specific issues scheduled to take place next week, the 13th to the 17th of July. You can find out details at manxradio.com. So more public meetings next week, 13th to the 17th of July. The Mooir Vannin wind farm will be located between 6 and 12 nautical miles off the east coast of the Isle of Man. And they say if it's successful, it'll be operating in 10 years' time, by the mid-2030s. They're talking about dozens of 1,000-foot wind turbines between 6 and 12 nautical miles offshore. Got any thoughts?
For 100 years, Manx Petroleum has been part of island life, fueling journeys, warming homes, supporting businesses. As we look to the future, that commitment remains. We'll continue to embrace smarter solutions to keep the island moving for the next 100 years. Because the road ahead matters just as much as the road behind. Everything we do will be powered with experience and innovation. Manx Petroleum, always here for you.
One architectural design company has particular expertise in achieving planning approval for a wide variety of projects, from landmark buildings to spectacular homes. Talk to the experts at Ellis Brown and get your project off the ground. For excellence in design, search Ellis Brown.
The exclusive Karcher store is open with thousands of products, accessories and parts in stock. For Karcher sales and service, Hersham Electrical, Shipyard Industrial Estate, Ramsey.
Drive smarter, drive more reliable, drive a great deal at Mannin Motors. With a superb range of cars for every budget, always available. And if we don't have it, we'll source it. Plus, servicing, valeting and prestige detailing too. Mannin Motors, Richmond Hill, Douglas. Find us on Facebook or call 420 420. That's 420 420. Drive a better bargain at Mannin Motors.
Chain, there's no chain, the chain's jumped off the sprocket.
This weekend sees a Saturday and Sunday meeting for the Andreas Racing Association's meeting at Derby Airfield. £6 in for adults, children under 16 go free. There's full facilities. Come and see us.
2 devastating earthquakes have hit Venezuela and survivors urgently need support. Please help now. Go to dec.org.uk to donate. Thank you.
Do you ever feel that the news sounds, well, a little familiar? Chances are it's because you've heard it all before. Using windmills to produce power, we were trialling those in the early 1960s. Old news. Reform of the Legislative Council. They were talking about that in the 1950s and earlier. Old news. Problems at Peel Commissioners. The Examiner suggested there was another farce there in 1945. Old news. Listen to these stories and more in the Old News podcast with me, H, available via your usual podcast provider or direct from the Manx Radio website. And you can also hear each new podcast broadcast live every Sunday morning just after 8:30. There's nothing new under the sun, it seems. It's all old news.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
24 minutes ahead of 1 o'clock. I agree, says this WhatsApper, with the lady about the fairy lights. They look so pretty on the prom, and I noticed last year there were no Christmas lights on the end, the Queen's prom end. Doesn't seem fair, really. I wonder why. A message just to say that is guerrilla maintenance allowed by the Health and Safety Executive? And what about those cancelling maintenance works put forward, says Andy. This has been mentioned many times when we talk about guerrilla gardening. One of the things I often bellyache about is the fact that just below us on Douglas Head, there are 2 sides to the road. One's got a very nice pavement, the other is completely overgrown. Completely overgrown. It looks like a jungle. From down where what used to be the Four Town Hotel, which is now Keynes. But the right-hand side, as you're coming up Douglas Head, is completely overgrown. It used to be a very nice pavement. So you have no opportunity to walk on that side of the road. Now, were somebody to do a guerrilla gardening job on that, and we've talked about it in the past, what would happen if somebody broke their leg or fell over, or somebody put a spade through somebody's hand? What would happen? Can anybody tell me, if you're doing guerrilla maintenance, are you covered by insurance? And Mark, this is living in Chester now, regarding the lights on Douglas Prom. In the mid-90s, an ex-girlfriend had an apartment in Marlborough Court Apartments. The view of the prom with the lights was fantastic. And I remember when there was a power cut, the prom was strangely dark, like it is now. The prom lit up when arriving on the ferry was a very heartwarming sight. Now it's not. Here's Dewan now. Hi, Dewan.
You don't need to borrow a top hat, Andy. I've seen yours at Timble Day. You don't need Quirky's. And Quirky's got a solar panel fitted to the top of his.
That is true, yes. That's true.
Yeah, pushing out 80%. I didn't say the other day as well, I believe the guest of honour for this year's Timble was a Reform candidate, wasn't it? A Reform MP, Andrew Rosendale.
Andrew Rosendale, I believe it was, yes.
Yes, yeah. He came over on Nigel's helicopter a couple of days before to spend some time here. That's just to wind Bonzo up, you'll be on in a minute. The Promenade. What did they originally say, Andy? I think they took the fairy lights down because they were just having lighting on one side of the Promenade, and they had nowhere to string the fairy lights to. Was that the reason that they give out?
I believe I heard, and I believe Mr. Christian will correct me if I'm wrong, but it was David Christian who said it's when they put the new lamp standards up and they were too far apart. They were too far apart to have a string of fairy lights between them, so it was something to do like that. They whatever it was, the wiring wouldn't bear the strain of the festoon lights. But I mean, the top and whatever the reason is, the top and bottom of it looks gloomy.
It does now, up at the top end near the Century Court area and the Queen's. You've got 2 lots of them LED lighting that they've got on each side of the grass verge, and they look not too bad at night time because there's obviously double the lighting. But the further you get down the promenade, it is quite drab and gloomy compared to the quayside, which is it's quite illuminated now with they put the LED bulbs in the fairy lights lights, and they look quite good. And of course, the original plan, I remember seeing an original town plan quite a few years ago now, where the horse tram, if I remember rightly, you might remember this, Andy, was in the town plan. I think it was a 7-year plan at the time, to link it from actually the sea terminal right the way around to the railway station.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So obviously someone new comes in, and it's their idea and their plan that changes, so nothing stays concrete in the great scope of things, which is a bit of a problem. Someone else comes in. Yesterday when Devon Watson was on, and I mentioned Nobles Park and of course the railings, and I don't want to sound like quirky repeating myself about certain things all the time, but I say that because it's so visible and it's something that someone can see quite easily that's not getting done. It's right in your face. And the question I'd ask there, Devon agreed with me on a couple of the points that I made yesterday, but the question I ask is, 4 years later, they're still there. And, as a council, I got that clarification yesterday that DOI are responsible for them. But as a council, I'd be saying, listen, guys, get this done, or we'll do our own guerrilla stuff as a council and do it. Because, just to have some welders in there, if it's not in the capital project scheme for the next year or 2 years, then just repair what you've got. I was down Peel yesterday, gorgeous down Peel yesterday, lovely actually, all day and right the way through the evening. But walking along the promenade, they've repaired all the railings. They've put in new horizontal railings in between the uprights. They've kept the old uprights, but they've put new horizontal railings right the way along. So if Peel can do this, then why can't Douglas? It's just something so simple that I can see that, some tubular steel, weld it, and you've got them back looking somewhere reasonable. And I just don't get the logic for this. It's all right agreeing with it, but nothing's getting done. That's the thing. And it's the same principle of Nobles Park, and I've said it with the Mooir Park. So underused, really are so underused. Could do a lot more with them.
Okay.
And the other point I just wanted to make, you touched on the wind turbines, as we touch on every day, don't we? I personally think there's so much information going around now. There's so much information. People don't grasp it. These meetings that are coming up are 4-5 hours long. These meetings that are coming up, they're very intense meetings that are coming up discussing this. I personally still think that people should have the right to listen to a debate. Have both sides on the table. Get the Villa Marina book. This government should be doing something to put this information out there to the people. Let the people make their own mind up. Listen to the debates from both sides on the table. Have someone in the middle like James Davis or yourself that's going to chair the meeting and put all the information there from both sides, and let the tables cross-question each other and a Q&A from the people, and let it be 4 hours or so long. Let the people decide for themselves, because there's so much information going around there and people can't take it all in. Like you say, Andy, all they want to do is go and make sure the kettle comes on, make sure the lights go on. There's too much information for people. Let them decide. Let these people, if Orsted is so good and they've got nothing to hide, come to the table with the other side and sit there and debate this out, because it is a hot topic. And it's no good them sitting there having all these separate meetings. Come together, have a debate, have a question time debate, and put it on the floor. Let the people sort out for themselves.
Okay, I nominate James Davis.
No, I think you in the top hat. I think in the middle there.
Thank you, June. Okay.
Take care, Andy.
Right, 17 minutes to 1. During the last heat wave, says Gaz, the UK had to buy electricity from Europe. Renewables had failed to provide sufficient supply. There was no wind for turbines. Solar panels had failed in the extreme heat. This is Gaz's words on 313. IOM renewables experts need to give us assurances that we won't spend millions and face shortages. The foghorn, by the way, is there for vessels as an audible warning for navigational purposes. So if it got you up this morning, sorry about that. It was the Manxman was outside in the fog, outside the harbour in the fog. As for the foghorn that used to be by the lighthouse, I haven't heard that for a long, long time for that. Text, email, call on WhatsApp. And Mary in Ramsey says, Andy, no to the massive industrial park that Ørsted is planning to desecrate, this is Mary's words, desecrate our avian, marine and fishing life here. The Isle of Lewis rejected the plans for an offshore wind farm, smaller than the planned one for the Isle of Man. They rejected it on environmental, visual grounds. This is what should happen over here, not the secrecy and lies. These are Mary and Ramsey's words by Ørsted and the government. Also, I agree, bring back the festoon light. Well, if you've got any thoughts, then please do get in touch.
Carpetland, the carpet specialist with the island's best value carpets in stock, often fitted within a week. Furnitureland, for three-piece suites, dining and living room furniture, and a selection of amazing beds. Carpetland and Furnitureland, West Street, Ramsey.
Oh, not again.
Oh, that Jack from next door really needs to improve his left foot.
Oh, don't worry. A storm did the damage last time, and it was easy to get a greenhouse pane from Manx Glass and Glazing.
Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. Visit them on Snugborough Trading Estate for all your glazing repairs and supplies. From glass tabletops and picture frame glass to greenhouse glazing, along with good old-fashioned customer service and product knowledge.
Manx Glass and Glazing. You're smashing.
Crow Isle of Man Chartered Accountants.
Remember when you used to get business advice from your bank manager? Stiff upper-lipped pillars of the community whom you called Sir? Nowadays, you can get all the advice on every business issue from the friendly, down-to-earth chaps at Crow Isle of Man. And some of the chaps are even women. Imagine! Crow Isle of Man. Global presence, local knowledge.
Crow Isle of Man. 627-335.
Revving up for the Southern 100 races. Your local Tesco has barbecue mains, celebration drinks, camping essentials and much more. Tesco, every little helps.
Heating oil for homes, powering farms and businesses, keeping you moving with petrol stations across the island. Ellen Vannin Fuels. Call us on 844000.
The countdown to the next Isle of Man general election is officially on. On Thursday, the 24th of September, you'll get to have your say on who you think should represent you in the House of Keys. And here at Manx Radio, we've got all the information you need to help you make your choice. We'll be playing out our full interviews with all the candidates each weekday from just before 11:30, and they'll also be available as podcasts shortly after broadcast, and you can watch them on our YouTube channel. And don't forget, for everything you need to know about the upcoming election, you can head to our dedicated website. Just go to manxradio.com to find out more.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
At 13 minutes now before 1. It's commendable that Katrina Baptiste said that people are trying to do the repairs, says Margaret. But I know sometimes health and safety is over the top. Surely in this case that can't happen, as it will be an unknown risk if playground equipment isn't refurbished by a registered person or a company to do that work. Thank you for that. Betty makes a good point, says this correspondent. I avoid driving along Douglas Prom since they build that horrendous Berlin Wall that blocks the sea view, all but the tallest people. I wonder why it was approved. Well, apparently it's to stop the spillover, isn't it? But we don't quite know how much sand is building up on the other side. And if the sand does get to the top of that wall, what then? Do they build a bigger wall? And Julian's with us now. Hello, Julian.
Hi, Andy. Yeah, pretty foggy this morning. I think it was not quite as obscuring as Ørsted's information coming out about seabed leases, inflation proofing or electricity to
island. However, in the north of the Isle of Man, if you check the Manx Radio webcams, it's always gorgeous. Whenever it's misty, Ramsey Harbour's always clear. It's always gorgeous, and the mountain was okay this morning as well.
This begs the question, what is the temperature on the Isle of Man when we hear these weather forecasts? Because it was significantly colder at the airport this morning than it was up in Ramsey, and I did look at your webcams. Coming up on what you talked about, Betty mentioning something, isn't the word for when you're telling someone that they can do something but there'll be consequences known as coercion? I don't know, would that be the definition of coercion?
Well, the thing is that somebody somewhere must have known that this whole sequence of event would have happened. Now, and Orsted say they put this forward in 2025, but I mean, surely they knew there was going to be a general election, and obviously, and the thing is, we don't know what the sequence of events is going to be, for who's going to approve it, what the final approval is, or what's eventually going to happen. We don't know. There may be some horse trading going on, and that we don't have 85 huge wind turbines, we have 40 smaller ones, or 30 smaller ones, or 20 big ones and 30 smaller. We don't quite know what the deal is going to be, and also we don't know how much the electricity is going to cost. And if there is going to be cheaper electricity, by how much? If they are going to put an interconnector in from Preston to Groudle, then who's going to pay to connect it from Groudle into the circuit, into the network on the Isle of Man? And how much is that going to cost? And is that going to require borrowing, a bond, or anything like that? So we don't actually know, and it's almost like we're being patted on the head and told to go away.
Well, it's interesting you say who will be the ones that will be working all this out, especially in government. I noticed yesterday, Devon Watson, when you were chatting to him, he made this statement that storms are getting more frequent, and when they are happening, they're worse. I just noticed before you had an advert on Old News podcast, so that gave me a little idea just to have a quick flick through. I noticed, say, for example, Isle of Man Times reported on the storm of 1823, 132 fishermen swept away in historic Douglas storm. You had Isle of Man Examiner, March 18th, 1905, Isle of Man ravaged by hurricane, roof of St Thomas's Church partially ripped off. Isle of Man Times, November 5th, 1887, terrific storm. What do we have here? Peel City Guardian, 1912, February 10th. The roadways along the whole length of the seafront were underwater to the depth of several feet. We've also got the photograph that I sent to Alex a few weeks ago with an old car, new at the time, in 1924, up to its axles in water on Strand Street. So this is all seems a little bit, shall we say, fear-mongering. I mean, when was the last time we saw several feet of water down Strand Street with vehicles up to their axles in seawater?
Not for a long time.
No. So, I don't know, is this... why can't we just... Howard had the right idea. I mean, putting a reinforced concrete core in the middle of the wall would be an excellent idea. Devon also said that when that wall came down in February, there was no named storm. Well, out of interest, a week before was Storm Chandra, so it's not without the wit of man that it might have been weakened by the previous easterly storm. But I've got a list here of 30 storms, all around the 1800s, early 1900s. Severe damage everywhere, and they just used to get out the next day and start repairing it. In fact, the Lady of Man went out within an hour or two of one of those storms. So it makes you wonder, is this reality that we really need this seawall? Wilf, God rest his soul, he was saying, why don't you just take away all the stones and get the seawall back the way it was? And I seem to also remember him saying that Mooir Vannin would be the ruination of the island. So, prophetic words, possibly.
Okay.
But yeah, all right. Thanks very much, Andy.
It's good to talk to you. Thanks for that, Julian. A note in Desmond just said it means the decision's already been made, and we don't want coming in with the view of the people, says Desmond. Well, let's take them at their word. The decision has not been taken yet. We don't know what's going to happen. So all depressed Sue in Ramsey, hello. So all prospective MHKs need to state their opinion before the election. Then the retiring Attorney General doesn't influence anything. And maybe Jamie Orsted can explain exactly what benefit the industry brings to the Isle of Man. Well, if you pop along, no doubt you'll have a chat with him. If you want to go to one of those meetings next week, I'm sure they'll be able to see you. It's a pity 100 million wasn't available for alternatives to renting a new berth in Liverpool. Fleetwood Harbour Improvement Scheme with the then regular dredging would have been a good berth with excellent connections and a short sea crossing, says John. Well, a short sea crossing, yes, but have you been to Fleetwood lately? There's no railway station there. Anyway, they took the railway station away from Fleetwood years and years ago. They've got a tram that feeds into the Blackpool tram system, but Blackpool isn't what you call well connected to the main line service. So Fleetwood, I don't know. I mean, Liverpool is, and many, particularly Liverpool and Everton fans, love the fact that we've got a Liverpool landing stage. We've got it. It's going to cost us a fortune. It's costing us a lot more than it was supposed to. But there we are. Lighting the Falcon Cliff. Is it no longer lit up at night, says Bob. Oh, crikey, if the Falcon Cliff isn't lit up anymore, what's going to happen? Whose bright idea was it, says 111, to close southern schools early due to the Southern 100? Why are we allowing a motorsport event to interrupt education? The schools say it's because of road closures, but there are access roads. Remember, the Southern 100 is on finally this afternoon. Roads should reopen now and then close again at 1:30 till 4:45 this afternoon. Of course, all the action is on AM 1368. And what Howard mentioned about Quegg Hill, it's going to close from 9:30 tomorrow morning till Sunday evening. So it's closed all Friday, all Saturday and most of Sunday. There's further work on that newly installed pipeline. Access via Port Sodrick will remain available throughout the closure, which means the old Castletown Road is going to be murder tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday. But right, anything? It's not just parks that are in a state, it's hedgerows and footpaths in Douglas and Onken that are disgraceful, says Pam. Everything is so overgrown you can't walk two abreast on Governor's Road because of overgrown hedges forcing you into the road. The footpath over Cronknamona is so overgrown with large cabbages, you won't be able to walk over it. What on earth is going on? Here's a message on WhatsApp that says the Manx fella running the gangs for Manx Rock has been fixing roads on the island for over 40 years from the prom to the airport. Colas bought the prom in on £25 million budget and in 3 years rather than 5 years. And we should be grateful for people like this. The government chose the pink concrete. It was cheaper than the granite pavers on Strand Street, which was suggested. So don't blame the contractors. That's it from Andy. Thanks to Christy on the phones today. Another Open Line is back tomorrow.
WINT